In 2008, everyone thinks the recession is bad. However, in 2020, the opinions of many Americans depend on their party. The US economy is now objectively appalling. The unemployment rate is at levels not seen since the Great Depression, and is expected to record the worst course of this quarter's decline in gross domestic product. Most economists believe it will take years to get rid of the stagnation. However, not everyone thinks the economy is doing so badly. In the most recent Quinnipiac University national survey, 69% of Republicans described the US economy as excellent or good. Similarly, nearly two-thirds of Republicans in both Civiqs daily tracking polls and in a June 11 to 15 Associated Press NORC poll said that the nation's current economy is at least leaning toward good. By contrast, only around 10% of Democrats thought that the national economy was doing well in those surveys. In fact, a closer look at Civiqs Data 1 shows that Democrats and Republicans' views on the economy are more polarized than at any point during President Trump's term of office. That isn't to say that Democrats and Republicans have seen eye to eye on the economy at previous points in Trump's presidency. They have not. As you can see in the chart above, there has been a fairly large and persistent gap in how Democrats and Republicans think about the economy. However, the gap did shrink after the pandemic's dire economic effects become apparent, and by early May, only one-third of Republicans still thought that the economy was in good shape. Republicans' economic optimism, however, quickly rebounded in June as states allowed businesses to reopen, and the May jobs report was released with better than expected news, even when Republicans' outlook on the economy was at its lowest point this year. According to Civiqs data, they still felt more upbeat about the state of economy than at any point in 2016 before Trump was elected, when the economy was objectively better. This is not surprising, as political science research finds that a strong economy may not be able to benefit a president as much as it once was, because voters' views on whether the economy is healthy, the preferred side is in power. This says a lot about how our policy is polarized, and also underlines one of the important points we have repeatedly made about John Seitz, Leon Vavrick, and the 2016 election. The political upswing and concern of the political upturn and the 2016 presidential campaign, which is a real economic reality, it was largely a result of partisanship, not reflection. Of course, the difficulty is that these attitudes are not just partisanship either. After 8 years of Obama's presidency, racial and economic anxiety become increasingly intertwined to the point that racial resentment was a much stronger predictor of economic pessimism under Obama than it had been under George Bush. That is why people, especially white Trump voters, believed that black people were getting ahead while they were left behind. Take the 2016 American National Election Studies survey. Before Trump took office, the more racial discrimination white people thought their own group faced, the more likely they were to say that the economy was worse than it had been a year earlier. These voters largely voted for Trump, but under Trump's presidency, a similar poll found that white voters were less likely to say the economy had gotten worse if they believed white people faced high levels of racial discrimination. In addition, nearly 3/4 of the 69,000 respondents surveyed for the Democracy Fund UCLA Nationscape in the past 3 months have said that the economy is worse than it was a year ago. But only around half of the white respondents who think their racial group faces a lot or a great deal of discrimination shared this economic pessimism. This was true even after controlling for several other factors such as partisanship and income. In other words, Americans' political allegiances and views on race influence their views of the economy. That marks a significant departure from the last time there was an economic downturn during a presidential election campaign. Americans, regardless of their partisanship and racial attitudes, universally thought the economy was in terrible shape after the financial collapse in 2008. But that is not the case now. So why is the coronavirus recession so different? One reason is that even though the national economy is in shambles, it's also ticking back up. It's unclear how fast the economy will recover, but this uncertainty opens the door for voters to adopt their own partisan and racialized explanations for the economy's performance. Additionally, in a presidential election where the incumbent had long planned to base his case for re-election on a strong economy, Americans are all the more motivated to view the economy through political lenses. Not to mention, Trump has also tried to bend the country's bleak economic reality to his will. He has said that the economy is springing back from the coronavirus recession like a rocket ship, claiming that the economic recovery is the greatest comeback in American history. This is very different from 2008, when few Republicans made the case that the economy was in good shape. At the time, GOP presidential nominee John McCain was even violently mocked for saying the fundamentals of our economy are strong, before quickly reversing his position to say the economy was in total crisis. But now the fact that most economists disagree with the president's optimism about a quick rebound may not matter. As we have seen with the Civiqs data, more Republicans think the economy is in good shape now than thought so in 2016. And a long line of social science research shows that when political elites are sharply divided, as they are now over the economy, the public follows the lead of the elites. That is, partisan messaging is now so powerful that Americans tend to adopt their party's standpoint even when that position runs counter to science or objective facts. And that's what makes the coronavirus recession so different. Americans are increasingly unlikely to abandon their partisan and racialized views of the economy. So, as long as Trump projects economic confidence, Republicans will likely continue to have a much more positive view of the economy than Democrats do. The US economy is definitely not overheating. In fact, it needs as much help as possible to pull out of the deep slump that it has been in for many years. Fed Chair Jerome Powell is supposed to be a Republican, and I suppose that it is possible that he actually believes that he is doing the right thing for the country by aggressively raising interest rates. But any sort of an economic slowdown will be extremely favorable for the Democrats. American voters are notorious for voting their pocketbooks, and when things get bad, they always blame whoever is in power at the time. In this case, it will be Donald Trump and the Republicans in Congress that get the blame for what the Federal Reserve has done. If the Democrats take back control of either the House or the Senate in November, Trump's agenda will come to a crashing halt, and thanks to the Federal Reserve, that scenario has just become much more likely.
Most of the idea, comment, information, and criticism containing in these videos have been created by Daily News Report. Before making any important investment decision, use the information contained in these videos as a starting point for conducting your own research. If you make any investment or legal decision, it is advised to consult an expert before making this decision.